Hi Aquarius, here we are with your higher octave reading for the period of August 26 to September 9. And as I mentioned at the end of the general reading here, you have quite a few major arcana cards here, and they're in reverse. All of them are in reverse. Again, I'm not reading that as a negative thing. I just mention it because I do read reversals and I do think it's important, and it does provide a different information than the upright card. You have here at the crowning card, the Death. I just realized you can't see the card, so I'm going to move down. Okay. So Death is the crowning card here at the top of the reading, and it's in the reverse position. So this, along with also the Tower card in the reverse position, in your outcome as well, this would kind of lead me to believe, or I think what it wants me to say is that I think some of the lessons that you're going through right now is a little bit of humility. I think what I spoke about in the earlier general reading as far as a group project or some type of collaboration where you're working together with a team of people to come together for a higher goal, or to create a really exponentiated outcome on a common vision. I think what that looks like for some of you is that it's a little bit hard to kind of compromise. That's what I'm seeing here with the Death and the Tower in reverse. I think there's a little bit of an ego battle going on where for some of you maybe it hurts your feelings to not get things going your way. Maybe you feel a little bit like you should have the final say, or your idea is the best idea, and that's what everyone should go for because you are more experienced, or you have better ideas, or you're more creative than other people. And I see that this is a little bit of a challenge for you. And given the other cards that are here, it's kind of confirmed as well. So, I mean, side by side with the Tower card, you have the Five of Cups here in the reverse, which in this deck is called disappointment. So that's it kind of affirms for me what I just said about, you know, it being a little bit of a challenge for your ego to actually work in a group context and to compromise a little bit on your ideas being the one that's chosen for what gets moved ahead with the group project. And I think there's a little bit of a lesson here about humility and about learning to, you know, compromise a little bit and accept that maybe things don't always go your way, but sometimes you have to kind of consider, you know, other people's ideas and other people's creativity, and maybe the end result might not be, what I'm also getting is maybe the end result might not be as heightened and as clear and as amazing as you think it could be, but sometimes in that there's lessons for other people too. You know, sometimes people need to go through things in their own way so that they can understand stuff. Maybe you are a little bit older than the other people in your group, or maybe you do have a little bit more experience than other people in the group that you're working with, but sometimes people need to fuck up and make mistakes so they can understand something on their own. Most of the times we don't understand lessons just by someone telling us, even though they already know because they've been through it themselves. But sometimes people need to make mistakes on their own, or get things learned by their own experience. And that's something that's in here that I'm feeling for some of you, that maybe in this experience you're feeling a little bit disgruntled at the fact that your idea isn't the one that was passed through the group for approval as far as how the project moves forward. But what you're not seeing perhaps is that in it being that way, if you can kind of center yourself in a kind of quiet, humble knowing, and just let people play out their ideas so that they can have their own experience, and in doing so have their own learning, because that's the best way to actually teach people, is to let them do things on their own and fuck up. It may not be a fuck up, it may just be like it may not turn out as awesome as you know it can, because they're not listening to your idea. But sometimes people need to learn through their own experience, and that's the only way they're going to get it. So I'm seeing that here because you have also, besides the Death card and the Tower card, you have here the Sage of Crystals, and here you have the Sage of Cups and the Sage of Worlds. Now, in the Voyager deck here, the court cards are mapped out a little bit differently, whereas in the Rider-Waite deck and other decks, you have the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. And those cards represent children, adolescents, and then evolved older people, women and men who have achieved and who have experience. Now in the Voyager deck, you have the children representing a combined energy of the page and the knights in the traditional decks, and then you have the man and the woman of those elements, and then the final card of each of the element suits is called the sage. And that energy, that enigma of the sage in this deck represents a total mastery over a certain element, the element that they represent, right? So being that you have 3 sages in this reading, that says to me that you are actually embodying that energy of experience, of wisdom, of mastery. These cards here are called, so the Sage of Crystals is called Knower, as in someone who knows. The Sage of Worlds is called Master. And the Sage of Cups is called Regenerator. So these 3 cards here, these cards represent the epitome of each of those elements, in that the person who's embodying this energy has mastered those elements. They have a lot of experience and wisdom based on simply life unfolding. You know, there's an element here of course, age. The sage represents someone who's an elder who has achieved already a certain number of rotations around the sun. So they simply have knowledge based on experience. Now, seeing these 3 cards in the spread, it kind of says to me again, and you have 2 of them reversed. You have the Sage of Crystals reversed, the Sage of World is reversed, and the Sage of Cups is upright. So this is kind of adding to what I said earlier, where I feel as if in this experience, you know that the outcome can be better than it might end up being, but because of your age and experience and your wisdom, you're able to sit back and without being egotistical and without gloating or without saying, I told you so, or any of that kind of, you know, egotistical sort of energy, you can just sit back and know that whoever else is in your team that you're working with simply needs to have the experience for themselves so that they can really master the lessons that are available to them. And your lesson in this experience is to be able to set aside your ego of you wanting to have things play out in exactly the way you want them, because you can see the result will be better. It's just about taking that quiet sit back in your seat and just let things play out in front of you and let people do things the way they want to do it, even if you know it's not the best, because they need to learn things in their own way and in their own time. And that's where the element of the sage energy, or that, you know, like that person who has carrying a little bit of experience and wisdom and mastery, can see that it just needs to be that way. And you don't need to push for your ideas to be the one that is the loudest or the one that gets the green light, because it's okay. There's going to be so many opportunities for you to have things your own way. And in this experience here, let other people have a go at making something happen so that they can actually learn by their own experience. That's the message that keeps coming through. People need to learn by their own experience. And even though you have knowledge, you have experience, you don't necessarily need to force your idea on the situation at this time, because the lesson for you is to learn how to let people learn in their own way. And the lesson for those people is to learn in their own way. I hope this is making sense. It feels really clear for me. I'm just hoping I'm choosing the right words to explain it. And again, here in the central axis of the reading, as I said, you had those 3 sage energy cards, which I feel really represent you. And here in the middle of the reading, you have the Child of Worlds, the Child of Wands, and the Full Child in the center, which is the crossing card. So again, this is really affirming to me that what I'm talking about is on point, which is that there is younger people in your team, or people with youthful energy, that kind of need to play out their ideas so that they can figure it out on their own. And your role right now is to just sit back and maintain the container. Just maintain the space for them in a very loving, unconditionally loving way, for the people around you to have their own experience in their own way, to figure it out on their own, because it's so much more potent. When people learn their lessons in their own way and in their own time, it's much, much, much more relevant, and it's more potent, and it really sticks much more than if someone just says to you, oh, if you do it like this, it's going to be better. You know what I'm saying? So your challenge is to set aside your ego, set aside your desire to lead by demanding how you want things to go, and just sit back in a quiet wisdom and maintain the container of the space for the project to unfold with the characters in the situation to lead themselves in a way, let people lead themselves and have their own experience, and let them see for themselves how it turns out when you do things that way or when you do things that way. Let them have their own education, and your role as a teacher or as a leader or as a master in your field is to simply be compassionate and understanding and unconditional in letting people play things out in their own way at this time. Because really I don't see any kind of disastrous result. It's not like if things don't go your way, there's going to be a complete shit show. It's not like that. It might not be, as I said, as good as it could be, but it's a necessary part of your growing as a teacher and as a leader, and also for those people in your team to have the chance to do things in their own way so that they can really learn what's the best, or how to... It's just experience. It's all just good experience for everybody. At the foundation here, some other cards I haven't mentioned yet is the Wheel of Fortune at the base of the reading. At the center of the reading, you have the Ace of Crystals in reverse. And again, here you have another ace as well. This is in the position of you, your environment, people around you, the energy around you. And so you have the Man of Worlds, which in this deck is called Achiever, and the Ace of Worlds, which is called Success. So this is just kind of repeating again what it says to me, is that you have there's a project going on where there's a physical, people are coming together to physically manifest something, and there's a lot of energy for that. There's a lot of there's ideas, there's passion, there's willpower, there's resources for something to begin, for a project to start. And I see this again as you. It's another one. It kind of adds to the other Sage cards that we had here, the Man of Wands in the upright. This to me says that you're a person who has a lot of experience in the physical world of actually creating, manifesting, building, designing, output. I see this as a physical output of you knowing very well how to use the resources that are available to you to make shit happen, to create, to build, to design, to draw, to create in whatever way you're working. So, you know, the foundation of the reading has the Wheel of Fortune in the reverse position. In this deck, it's just called Fortune. So I'm seeing this as, like, again, it's not a negative reading. I'm just simply seeing this as you taking this opportunity to take a bird's eye view on what's happening and step back a little bit from your own need to be right, from your own need to have things to be done the way that you want them done because you know best, and just let the younger people in your team or the people who have less experience that are around you that you're working together with for a common goal, let them play things out in a certain way so that they can really learn, and they'll get so much more out of the experience, and they'll develop so much more and be more valuable to you as team members eventually if you let them have their experience in their own way without trying to control the situation, without trying to forcefully have things played out in the way that you see as best, even if you're right, and you are right. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, because you're right. But again, as I said earlier, and I'm going to repeat here, this is about you finding the humility to set aside your need to be right and to have your idea but be the one that the group agrees to go forward on, and just let things be, let things play out. Don't be smug. Don't be a know-it-all. Don't say I told you so. Just set all of that aside and be willing to let people learn things in their own way, and just be there to kind of guide and direct things if people come to you and ask you questions. That's, I think, what a lot of this is. I think you're stepping into this time now where you're kind of seeing that in order to be a better leader and to have people kind of love and respect you more and trust you more as a leader, it's a time to kind of just sit back a little bit and wait for people to come to you without always feeling the need to kind of direct everything down to the nth degree of specifics how you want things to be. If you give people a little bit of space to be creative, they're going to feel so much more pride in their work and in what they're doing, and they're going to feel so much more valuable to you as a team member, and in fact they will become so, because you're giving them the chance to figure things out on their own, and that's so empowering. So again, just to summarize, if you can set aside your need to be right and your need to have things play out exactly the way you want to, and set aside your need to have your idea be the one that's greenlit, and just let the team work together in a way that's a little bit more with you in a slightly more passive role, where you just let people do things as they would, and you just be there to kind of maintain the space, maintain the container, so that people can have a sense of safety, you know, because there's some risk involved, but it's not a total risk in the sense that you are kind of still maintaining the space, but you give people a little bit of freedom to explore their own ideas, to explore their own potential, fundamentally explore their creativity. Let them have the chance to see what's really in them, see what ideas they can bring through when they're given the space, when you give them enough trust to let them feel like they are valuable to you and they are important to you in a team sense. You're going to get, if you're working with people who you've been working with for some time, or even if it's a new project, I feel like these people could be some type of collaborators that you work with for a long time. And if you work with the energy that's here right now, you're going to have much more come out of them as in the future. They're going to be much more valuable to you if you give them this space to explore things in their own and have their own experience and learn things in their own way. They're going to actually provide so much more value to you in the long run. Let's see what's at the bottom of the deck here. You have 7 of Wands, which is called Courage in this deck. Ace of Wands again, 2 of Cups, and the Sun. I'll take those 4. At the top of the deck you have 9 of Cups, Fulfillment, and 7 of Crystals is called Dullness. So I would say here, again, like for you to actually be aware enough to understand what I'm saying and respond to it in a positive way, I think that takes courage, because it does require you to release a little bit of control, which is not easy to do at all, especially when you know, like, if things happen my way, it's going to be awesome. But if you let people fuck up a little bit and give room for them to make mistakes, the result isn't going to be as awesome as it could be in this project. But in the long run, as I said, it's going to create much more valuable people in your team. I hope that makes sense. You have, again, Ace of Wands in the upright. That kind of comes together with the Ace of Worlds here. Just that this is like, there's pure energy available for some project or some kind of activity or some type of, like, the ideas and the resources are there to move forward to manifest the project, a common goal. And the Sun here is just a beautiful affirmation after all that I've just talked about, to say that this is a very optimistic and very happy experience that will be successful. It already is successful. I think that you will find your way to relax into a role that's a slightly upgraded version of how you have been performing as a leader, so that you can actually relax into being a more receptive person who is passive, in the sense that you're less engaged in, as I said earlier, it's less about your ideas being the ones that are greenlit, and it's more about you being this kind of more compassionate person that's kind of maintaining the container for the people in the group that you're working with, to have the chance to express their ideas and to see what happens if they follow that idea, and see what happens if they pursue that sort of creative impulse. And the net result in the long term will be you have much more valuable team members. Okay, Aquarius, I hope that made sense. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll leave the link for the first reading in the description box as well, so you can have both of them together. And as I mentioned at the end of the first reading, I would recommend that you watch both of them again, now and again in a week's time, because you'll get more out of this again as events unfold. And send comments. I'm really interested to see what your experiences are, and if this is resonating for you, if it's making sense, because it helps me know that I'm also on the right track with what I'm doing here. Sending love, and I'll see you in the next reading, Aquarius.